The story of me starting is pretty simple. As a 13-year-old boy during summer in the mountains here, there's not like activities in the city, and boredom just got me started. I started a fire, heated up a piece of metal and started hammering on it. From there, it evolved on its own. I did not even know what blacksmithing was, really. My parents had no clue. When I first started, I was a little pyro being a 13-year-old boy. It was just cool to me, the fire and the steel and the hammering and all that stuff. And I just got more and more into it. And the experience evolved from it just being cool to more of a learning experience to, okay, I can sell these things. This is now a business experience, to something that I can really put myself into. Passion has just evolved into all sorts of things over the years that have changed me a lot. I grew up in the perfect time for the way I've grown and run my business. Growing up, the internet's just like second nature for people my age. So that was the first place I went to. Internet, there's already quite a few resources out there. And now on the internet, there is way beyond what there was when I started blacksmithing. Blacksmithing has just exploded in the last 6 years, 7 years. When I first started, I was limited to the internet. I'm pretty a shy person. As a kid, I'm not gonna go talk to like a 50-year-old man who's been making knives or whatever. I'm not gonna do that. So my blacksmithing sort of stayed at a pretty elementary level for a while until I graduated from high school. And I had been blacksmithing for 4.5, 5 years before I graduated. Once I graduated, then I started going to different events and talking to people and seeing people's work. Once I started talking to people and seeing examples of good work in person, that's when my knife making really started propelling forward, because you don't know what you don't know. You can't do what you don't know. And I just didn't know what a knife really should look like. If I had to give someone advice for how to get better, it would be to look at examples of good work, because you can't make good work if you don't know what good work is. Fortunately, I have come to know a lot of really good makers in the last 4 years, and I feel like I have the abilities and the confidence now in my own work and my own self to create something new. You should learn from other people, what they know, see what they do, and then at a certain point in time, you need to do your own thing. And I feel like that's where I'm starting to go now. There's a lot that I don't know. I can always rely on other people. One of them would be Jason Lonin. Without being incredibly famous, just who he is as a person is an amazing teacher and a man. He was my welding instructor in high school, because he did blacksmithing as a side business, and he was a welding instructor full time. So he knew blacksmithing. He saw this as something that I wanted to do, and he let me do it while everyone else was welding, which totally unfair. And then after I got out of high school, if I ever needed to go to his own blacksmith shop at his house, he'd let me, he'd teach me things, he'd show me things. He didn't hide anything from me. He was a resource. He supported what I was doing 100%. Just learning what tools I need to have has happened pretty organically. My tool acquisition has come from just figuring out what type of product I want to make, how fast I want to make that product, and then depending on what processes I've developed, those determine what tools I need. Then I find the tools and then learn how to use those tools. The size of my old shop really restrained what I could do. So I was limited to your basics, basic hand tools with blacksmithing, hydraulic forging press, belt grinders. Half of what excites me and drives me now is the process. I get to create the process as a theory, and then I get to design tooling, and then I get to figure out what machine that specific tooling would work best in. And then we get to make the tooling by hand from scratch, from an idea, put the tooling in the machine, and then test the process on an axe and then adjust from there. And that's no different than making a knife or an axe. It's just making things, creating things. Start to finish with the axes, we start with a rectangular block of steel. It's 4140 steel. And we use a hydraulic press to punch a hole in the eye. And then that hole is initially made with a punch, and then we use tools called drifts, which are similar to the punch, but they make the eye larger in different shapes. So we put drifts through the steel to create the eye, and at that point it's a block of steel with a eye-shaped hole in it. And then we use fullers on a power hammer, just open die, to draw out material, and we draw out the lugs on the axe and the blade on the axe, and then we go between power hammers and hydraulic presses to shape the profile. So I rough everything out on the power hammer, which is all free form, it's called open die forging, and get the shape that I want. Depending on the axe model that I'm making will depend on exactly what angle I hold it, how hard I hit it, how long I hit it that hard, where I'm hitting it. And then from there, we use dies that we call profile dies, which just go over the whole profile of the axe to get it into shape. We go between profile dies and cross-sectioning dies and trimming dies, back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, to get an axe that's really clean. And once we're done with the forging, we go through heat treating processes and polishing processes, and get into making of the handle and the sheath and putting it all together. You have to love the process, whatever your process may be. If you are just striving for an end product or an end goal, probably gonna burn out. From my own experience, the process is never ending. All you're doing is chasing a never ending bottleneck. As soon as I fix one thing, that means that improvement in this one department is gonna create a bottleneck in another department. Because I speed one thing up faster than another process can handle, and then we do that, and then we do that, and then we do that, until you decide you want to stop, but it's literally never ending. And that's like just exciting to me. Someone who I have looked up to for a long time before I met him was Jason Knight. He is maybe the most well-known master smith that exists right now that's alive. He is an amazing knife maker, but after I met him, I also learned he's an amazing man, and I got to start forming a relationship with him back in 2016. He has given me advice with my business, more so with the philosophy behind what I do, more than actually making things. The way he thinks is just so inspirational. He just encourages me to do what I want to do. He gives me advice that before I would have thought was just sort of cheesy and stupid, and probably wouldn't have listened to it, and probably most people don't really understand what he's really saying when he says it to you. As far as, you know, being authentic to yourself, making what you want to make, and the people will come. And I know that when I was at my old shop years ago, I would look online at other people's work, and it would just make me feel bad, because you're striving for an image that is not you. You know, with social media and filters, and people make themselves look a certain way, and then causes depression because other people can't do that. But as far as knife making goes, it's the same thing, or with anything really, it's the same thing. I was at a point for a little while where I was focusing too much on what other people were doing or listening to what people would tell me. And Jason's thing was always telling me, you do the best that you can and people will follow. And I've sort of woken up to realize, and it all makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's true. And I think that a lot of people need to hear that also, that the only way that you're going to do it is if you love it. You're not going to love it if you are pushing someone else's agenda. And it will take a lot of courage and confidence and time and failure to do that. The only way, what I've learned through my business, is that the only way to accomplish what you need to accomplish to reach a level of success that you personally want to reach is by loving it. If you don't love it, you will not physically, mentally be capable of putting in the amount of work that it is going to require to reach that. And the only way to love it is to be authentic with yourself. If you're trying to reach something that is not you, or if you're trying to be something that someone told you you are, then you are going to have insecurities and you're going to lose passion, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to love it. The only way that you're going to love it is if you are being you.